Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. There is only one reality, and you are that. I am that.
O Sri Ramana, bestow your grace upon me, so that I may in experience flawlessly attain the unequaled and unsurpassed essence of the practice of self-knowledge, the excellent path, who am I, which you have discovered to be the central and foremost among all the various paths. O Sri Ramana, the heart, who through your grace protects me at every moment by guiding me along the correct path. Rise from within and teach me the true import of your divine and unequaled teachings, so that I may know them in their undivided, pristine purity. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Beautiful reading. Aklis, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Right there. I don't know. It's not really much of a question, but maybe I'll just ramble for a bit and you can let me know what you think. Um,
Sure, sounds good.
so the body mind undergoes so much suffering, and there's things that could be done to mitigate the suffering, but it just doesn't do like any of them. And it seems like it just goes on forever and ever. And I just tell myself that, oh, it's just a bad dream. All of this is just a bad dream, and it'll be over sooner or later. But it's not. Well, it's some consolation, but there's only so much it can do, and it feels like not even so much as I've lost interest in self-inquiry, but sometimes when I come to satsang, I just feel the opposite of desire to practice. I just want to give up on it entirely and just pretend I never discovered Bhagwan's teachings to begin with. Um,
If you'd never discovered his teachings, what would you do differently?
Not a whole lot,
But
but I
what
guess it just feels like I have this knowledge, and there's no real way to bring about the end of body mind world besides practice and self-inquiry and surrender. It feels like I'm not even doing that. So what's the point of even knowing? So I just kind of feel bad about it.
Yeah. So just to play a game with you, an exercise, an experiment, let's pretend now that there is no liberating teaching. Yeah, you've never heard Bhagwan's teachings, or you've heard them but they don't work. Now what?
That'd be a bit depressing.
Yeah. Now what? What if I said that, the suffering you're having, you may said the body mind is suffering. Of course, I'm very sad to hear that. I don't want anybody's body mind to suffer. I don't want your body mind to suffer. It's sad whenever I hear that somebody's body mind is suffering. It is. But what if I said that was going to be the case? That's just the way it is for the next, let's say 10 lifetimes. That's your karma. Something like this. The teachings aren't going to work for you this lifetime. You're not going to end suffering in this lifetime. As an exercise,
I guess it doesn't really change much because I kind of already feel that way to begin with.
yeah, carry on then. So what are you going to do?
Not a whole lot.
My suggestion is that you should give up. If something isn't working, you should give up, right? Forget the teachings. Sometimes the teachings, all they do, all they're good for is tying you up in knots. You know? The understanding you've accumulated, you've gathered, the knowledge you've accumulated, this is what you said. This can all get in the way. Give it up, let go. Forget it all. Say to yourself, what if this entire thing is a load of rubbish? This entire thing is a load of rubbish. You know? A bunch of madmen wearing loincloths.
I've definitely had that thought before.
Misguided people. They seem to be holy, but they're just crazy.
But there's just something about Bhagwan that's so compelling that it seems implausible that it wouldn't be true.
I agree. I agree. But this is an exercise. This is use of your imagination, creativity. Surrender means stop trying. And be still means stop trying. Let go of all your knowledge. There's a wonderful text called Advaita Bodha Deepika. Advaita Bodha Deepika. It's a traditional Advaita Vedanta text. This is the teachings of Advaita Vedanta in a lovely way. Recommended by Sri Ramana Maharshi. And right at the end, they go through the whole, in the first few chapters, it goes through all the Advaita teaching. It defines what self is, what non-self is, what all the various different components of non-self is. It goes through all the technical aspects of the teaching. And then right at the end, it's a conversation between seeker and guru, guru shishya, guru and disciple, guru and shishya. And right at the end, the shishya, disciple says, how do I attain liberation? What is the best method? From Yoga Vashista. And it says the ultimate means of liberation is to forget everything. Forget everything. And then the seeker says, but I thought knowledge was the means. I thought knowledge was the ferry by which I can be transported from the shore of suffering to the shore of liberation. And the teacher says, yes, but knowledge just means to forget everything. Forget everything means give up. Be still. If you try, see, what can happen is that we're motivated by pain to become free. The ego that experiences pain naturally wants to be free from the pain. So it goes, how can I get out of this pain? Oh, here's a way. I must do that. And it throws all its efforts to doing that. And after some time, it doesn't work. These efforts fail. And then the ego starts to feel disillusioned, sad, despondent, frustrated. The ego has to stop. The ego has to give up. There's a verse in Guru Vachaka Kovai. We read it in the last couple of months, I think, saying eventually all the efforts you make this way and that way, something like this, all the efforts you make, when they stop, and just then the self is realized. Does anyone remember that verse? No? I'm not going to be able to find it, I know. I'll try and find it later. What if this is a load of rubbish? What if this whole thing's a load of rubbish? Now what? Now you're left by yourself. You've heard the teaching, sure. But now you're by yourself. What are you going to do? I know it's not a very hopeful teaching to express it this way, but it's actually very practical. I had to do this kind of resetting many times in my practice over the years. You discover a teaching, you follow it, you feel like you're making progress, and then you hit a brick wall. And then I used to say, oh God, I'm just going to forget everything and start again from first principles, as it were.
I feel like the problem with that could be that it might take me to where I was before I discovered the teaching to begin with, which
Yes.
I can see the utility of it, but also that place was a very dark place, I guess you could say.
Yes. What you probably have to do, that's a great point. And that's, thank you for raising it. That's true. That's the problem with what I've just said. Everything I say, there's a problem aspect to it as well. So you've just raised that. Thank you. Then what probably you have to do is that dark place you're in before, you have to let a bit of that darkness in. You don't want to go all the way back there, of course, but you have to let a bit of it back in and start to integrate it, deal with it. And it's a balancing act. You let too much of it in, you can get pulled down into that darkness, which is what you don't want. But if you shut it out completely, then you don't get to heal it and it holds you back. So you've got to find a safe way for you to allow a bit of that darkness into you. That pain and suffering that you was much worse before. You have to feel safe first. You have to feel grounded and safe first. Once you feel grounded and safe, you can let a bit of that darkness back in and you can start to integrate it and heal it.
Well, unfortunately, I do seem to have a tendency of when I do find myself in deep darkness, I usually end up being stuck there for months or even years sometimes, which is obviously not something you want.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just have to shut it out. And it might be that you're not ready to open up to it again. This kind of thing is usually best dealt with a therapist because you're talking about a severe level of psychological pain, I'm assuming, right? That sets you back for months, years. This is, well, it sounds like it's a mental health issue, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a component of that, I would say.
It's like saying it's a mental health issue. It's like saying, oh, that pain in your leg, it's a broken leg. There's no shame. It's just a diagnosis. It's just an understanding of what's happening. If you've got a broken leg, it's different to a bruised leg. Both are pains in the leg, but one requires a different treatment or a different level of treatment.
I think an issue of it is it's not even just that. There is a big mental health aspect, but there's also other things that are less obvious.
Yeah.
And that don't really, well, at least with on paper with a mental health issue, like on paper it's understandable and more simple. Obviously it's not really simple, it's not easy, but there it can be cognized more easily. it's it's something that you can treat, whereas other things are more sort of nebulous and vague.
What other things? I mean, if you don't have to share it here if you don't want to, Aklis. You know,
Um,
I don't want to feel uncomfortable.
well, there's certainly an aspect of just vague malaise and discontent that doesn't really. I suppose it could just be linked to something most people feel at one point, which is just the sheer discomfort of being a person, which I suppose is probably at least in part why we're all here. But I seem to experience it on such a visceral level.
I recommend you talk to me, Aklis. I recommend you talk to me about this in detail. If you want to, if you feel ready to do that. Then when I say that, I mean in a one-to-one. There's a time for shutting out your emotions, but there's a time for letting them in. Maybe that time has come for you, where we can start to let them back in again. But, you know, you have to be ready for that. I don't want to do anything that would destabilize you and take you back to a very dark place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
These things are very difficult. These things are very difficult indeed. There is healing and redemption and happiness and bliss waiting for you, Aklis. I promise you. These teachings are true and real, I promise you. They're genuine.
Yeah, I don't, well, I don't know if I never doubt that, but I'd say as a general tendency, I don't doubt it. It's more that whenever I get a taste of that, it's gone. It's like vanishes in a puff of smoke as quickly as it appeared.
Yeah, that's the mind. That's the mind rushing back in. But usually there's lots of worry, there's lots of fear that's obstructing the revelation. And it sounds like you're afraid, and it sounds like with good reason, afraid to experience the fear, the pain, the torment. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, sometimes it's good not to feel those emotions because they're too much. And, you know, we don't want you to get dragged back into a dark place for a prolonged period of time. But eventually we have to let these emotions come back again. Bhagavan said in self-inquiry, all these vasanas come up. They all come up. Everything that we've pushed down has to come up, come through us. It doesn't have to it doesn't have to happen right now. And then maybe now you're not ready for it. You're not strong enough for it. And that's okay. All in good time. Everything has its time. Timing is key.
I feel like I've done so much of it already, of experiencing the suffering and fear, that it just kind of like it can't just be all that.
I think it probably is. I might be wrong. I might be wrong, but it probably is. And the fact that it's the fact that if you let it all back in, there's the concern it might take you to a dark place for several months or even longer, then that shows there is still a lot of darkness, those dark emotions, those traumas, those fears, that psychological pain in you.
That's not what I meant, though. I meant that
Sorry.
like there needs to be a period of not having that in order to be able to do more of it.
Yes.
There's only so much you can take.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's the ideal, at least. But sometimes it's not like that.
Yeah.
Ideally, you're right. Ideally, you would go out to work and do the work and then go home to rest. And then you have your rest. And only once you've rested will you go out to work again. Yeah, if you get the analogy.
Yeah. But
But
it seems like
sometimes,
when
sometimes, you are like working in a Victorian workhouse, you know, you don't get the rest
it's
you need.
it
You don't,
seems like when the floodgates burst open, it just all collapses all at once. And then you just kind of like put the dam back together, only for like you're just getting halfway through it, and then the ocean bursts through it once more.
yeah. I'm not minimizing psychological suffering because it is truly awful when it happens. It is truly awful, you know. I'm not minimizing it, but what is the nature of psychological suffering? It is just thoughts and feelings. It's just thoughts and feelings based on beliefs, narratives, stories. Fundamentally, it won't actually harm you unless you start believing the content of it. Now, that's easy to say. That's easy for me to say. I know it's different when you're caught up in it. But actually,
Mm.
it can't hurt you. It cannot hurt you one bit.
I do have another caveat though.
Go
If
on.
it was just psychological suffering alone, it would be a lot easier.
It brings pain, physical pain with it.
Not necessarily. Well, it does bring pain with it. They are linked, but there is also just pain, physical pain in and of itself, unrelated to it. So I suppose the psychological suffering just exacerbates it.
Yeah. And again, physical pain has two basic causes. It has physical causes and it has psychological causes. And the two can go together. Many pains in the body, there's no physical problem, meaning there's no gross physical problem. The psychological is actually just an aspect of the physical. It's just a subtle form of the physical. We separate it for communication purposes. But many, many pains are just due to the psychological. The number of people I see who have physical pains, and it's because of psychological reasons, or 90% of their pain is due to psychological reasons. And when you deal with the psychology, the pain basically disappears. Or there are physical causes. So we have to try and treat the pain at the root. I don't know what you're talking about, Aklis. I'm just speaking in general terms here.
I guess I would say in my case, I'd have the semi-constant physically caused pain and the occasional psychologically induced pain.
I'm sorry to hear that. And you've sought medical help?
Yeah,
Good.
but it's helped to some degree, but I've have like major issues seeking help for medical issues at all. I'm very avoidant.
That's the psychological pain. Affecting your ability to seek help for physical pain. Or maybe it's the experience with the healthcare professionals. I don't know.
A bit of both, I guess.
Well, let's chat about it in a one-to-one, Agnes, if you're up for it. I'll leave it to you, but these are the kinds of things that I help problem solve, troubleshoot.
Sorry, you just cut out from me. I didn't hear anything.
Okay, I said my recommendation is book a one-to-one with me. These are the sorts of things that I problem solve and troubleshoot with people. And we get through it. We figure out a way forwards.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Really appreciate you
And you.
sharing. Really appreciate you sharing and really appreciate you, Atlas. So sorry about the suffering you're going through. Can we all take a moment to just hold Atlas in our thoughts and to allow, and if we feel up to it, we can allow Atlas's pain, suffering to come into us, and we can take that for him. We can bear the burden of his pain for him. If you want to. This is what I often do silently when people share their pain with me. This might be the first time I'm sharing this with anyone. But I energetically often take the pain myself. Because there's no one here, it just goes straight through. There's no one there either. But because if there's a belief there's someone there, then this is the resistance. But when that belief isn't there, it just goes straight through. Let us just have compassion, love for Aklis and ourselves. Let us have a love for ourselves. And let us have love for Aklis. We all have nothing but love and compassion for you, Aklis. Nothing but love and compassion for you. Must be terribly difficult. Like being stuck between a rock and a hard place, as they say. Must be very difficult. I feel tremendously for you. My love to you. And I hope I and this satsang can help unburden you of some of this suffering. That is the point of the teachings. That is the point of us being here. Again, really appreciate you sharing. And I hope we can meet and discuss it if it's right for you. So that's up to you. That's for you to decide. And maybe in the future we can report back to this group if it's appropriate, if you want to, and if it's appropriate. And I hope it works, of course. If it doesn't work, I don't mind people reporting back and saying, well, didn't work, you know? Keep it real. Thank you again, Aklis. Thank you so much. Now, I saw a few people raise their hands and lowered their hands during that conversation. Piers, welcome.
Tom, hi. Yeah, I got a question, but before I ask my question, I just thought I'd share, for the benefit of Aklis and anyone else listening, that it might be relevant, that in my life I've been through some very dark times and depressive states, which also lasted for years. And at that time, I never thought that I could get through it or, get over it. But ultimately, I did, and things changed. So I'm just offering that up because it might be helpful. Because I can remember very much almost disbelieving that it was possible to even come through it or get out of it or change it. It was so dark. So I know it is possible. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Piers.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And
I also have experienced that.
right.
I've also experienced incredible negativity and a sense that I can't go on.
Yeah.
And a feeling that it cannot change.
Yeah.
This is the power of Maya.
Yeah, it was absolute like hopelessness, despair in my case. Yeah, just a complete sort of and then, upon reflection, months later, years later, the realization of how powerfully deceptive the mind is or can be to make you, to kind of trick you in a sense, to believe that that's the way it is. And it's hard to, when you're in the thick of it, it's very hard to actually see through that at all, to negotiate with that.
It feels
kind of
impossible.
wall.
It feels impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so difficult. And then from a physiological point of view, there's a hormonal or chemical aspect to it as well, where when you have these emotions, they create physical effects in the body. Maybe stress, anxiety, pain, tension. And these physical effects, they last for some time.
Yes.
So even if psychologically you're letting go, it still feels terrible for a good amount of time. And then over that time, the psychological thing may come back in again, and then you end up in this vicious cycle.
Something I just wanted to mention something I thought of before actually as well, which I know it's not a panacea by any stretch. Something I found very helpful in my life as I don't know, just something which might be worth considering is I at some point I got a cat. I love pets. For other people, it might be a dog or whatever. And for me, that was a great psychological boost because it just for me, it was just something about, I don't know, her presence. I love her energy. Yeah. So just a thought, a pet can sometimes, it's not, a pet's not liberating you, but it can sort of lift your mood because you feel kind of responsible for them, and also they're just, I don't know, for me, it's kind of like her presence as well. Sometimes just looking at her or stroking her, playing with her. I've always found that really, it's just a comfort. And somebody said to me, it's like having a real live, a living teddy bear, an interactive teddy bear. And so I thought that was quite amusing.